All right, just picture this for a second. The sun goes down over Pattaya, and the neon lights just explode into life. You can feel the energy in the air, you know? The music's pumping, bikes are zipping by, and thousands of tourists are out, ready to have a good time. It's intoxicating, and it absolutely screams opportunity. And you can see why, right? You look around, you see these little bars, cheap beer, and a never-ending stream of customers, and you think, wow, I could do this. It seems like the perfect business, maybe even the ultimate retirement plan. But, as you can probably guess, there's a catch. A big one. And here is that reality check, a staggering 70%. Think about that for a second. 7 out of 10 foreign-owned bars in a place like Pattaya are gone within the first 12 months. So what is going on here? Well, behind that dream is a whole system of hidden costs, legal traps, and psychological pressures that almost nobody sees coming. So let's start with how the dream even begins. It's a classic story. Usually it's a Westerner, maybe in his 50s, he's on holiday, and he just falls in love with the place, the weather, the cheap cost of living, and this idea of running a simple little bar right near the beach. And this is where the first trap springs. The new owner, well, he starts out by just enjoying himself. He's drinking with the customers, chatting up tourists. He's living the life. The line between his work and his vacation just completely dissolves. It feels less like he's running a business and more like he's hosting a permanent party. But that party, it turns into an absolute grind, and fast. The reality sets in. It's 10, 12, sometimes 14-hour days just to keep the lights on. The fun just evaporates. The nightlife you loved becomes this exhausting chore, and the owner is totally burnt out a lot of the time before they've ever seen a single dime in actual profit. But the personal burnout is just the beginning. Then you have to face the cold, hard numbers. Now, you'd think that the recent tourism boom would be amazing for business, right? Well, for new investors, it's actually created this massive, unexpected financial squeeze. I mean, just look at these numbers. It's insane. Not that long ago, you could get a small bar in a prime spot for maybe $1,000 a month. Today, that same spot can be $6,000. So investors are showing up with a budget based on old information, and they get absolutely crushed by the rent alone. And then there are the costs you'll never see on a spreadsheet. It's called T-money, and it's just part of doing business there. We're talking about small, unofficial payments to, well, to keep things running smoothly. An inspection, a permit, a visit from security, you name it. They're small payments, but believe me, they add up to thousands of dollars a year that were never part of the plan. So when you actually do the math, the picture gets complicated fast. You've got your obvious costs, right? Rent, staff, booze. But then you've got electricity, music licenses, security, social security for your employees, and of course, all that T-money. It's a mountain of expenses that new owners just consistently fail to account for. On top of all that, you've got to remember that tourism isn't a year-round thing. High season, from about November to April, it's great. But then low season hits. From May to October, the number of customers can just fall off a cliff. The problem? Your rent doesn't go down, your staff still needs to get paid, so the money you make in those good months has to be enough to carry you through the bad ones. And a lot of businesses just don't survive that first slow season. Okay, so let's say you manage to survive the financial nightmare. There's another huge problem waiting for you, and it's a legal minefield that so many foreigners walk right into. And they often don't even realize it until it's way, way too late. This right here, this is the absolute core of it. Thai law says that most businesses have to be at least 51% owned by a Thai citizen. So what does that mean? It means that on paper, you, the person who put up 100% of the money, are legally a minority shareholder. You are never, ever in full control. And this is probably the most common and heartbreaking way that people lose everything. An investor, he falls in love, he trusts his Thai partner, so he registers the business in her name to satisfy that 51% rule. Then, the relationship goes sour, and that's when he makes a devastating discovery. Legally, the business was never his. His entire investment, just gone. I know, this all sounds incredibly bleak, but let's go back to that 30% number. There are people who make it work. So how do they do it? The key is they approach the whole thing with a completely different mindset. They survive because they actively avoid every single one of the traps we've just talked about. It really just boils down to this. The 70% who fail treat their bar like a retirement hobby. Their management is casual, they don't really have a plan. But the successful 30%, no way. They treat it like what it is, a serious, data-driven business with super strict financial controls. And they've got an exit strategy from day one. And when I say data-driven, I mean they are obsessed with the numbers. They're tracking every single thing: daily drink sales, what it costs to get a new customer in the door, staff commissions, inventory levels, how demand changes with the seasons. They are not just hosting a party. They are running a finely tuned machine. And this might be the single most important difference. The smart investors, they know that nightlife trends change in a heartbeat. A place that's hot today can be totally empty tomorrow. So they plan their exit, how they're going to sell the bar or transfer the lease before they even serve their first drink. That way, they make sure they can get their money back out before the business loses its value. So when you put all of these pieces together, the psychological traps, the financial pressures, the legal dangers, and the strategies that actually work, what's the ultimate takeaway here? What does this all mean for that person dreaming of a little bar by the beach? It means that while the dream is incredibly alluring, chasing it without doing deep research, without having local knowledge, and without strict, ruthless financial discipline, well, it's just incredibly dangerous. Because for the vast majority of people, that dream of an easy life in the sun ends up becoming the costliest lesson they will ever learn.